So let's move on to the height information now. And like I said, we're going to do the base. So let's go on over to that folder. And it is getting a little bit, it's getting a bit much. So what you can do is you can actually right click on this dude, and then you can just label them. So material label, material sides. Yeah, that's fine. So we can just give them colors here, for example, just to make it a little bit easier to have a look at that. And let me just see what the heck I'm doing here. Shoe base, shoe leather band. That's that piece there. Yep, and this one here. Okay, so right, something like that, just to make it a little bit easier. So now we know what folders we have open when we're actually opening them, and it's just a little bit easier to navigate. Obviously, there's only a few of them here, so we just need to be careful of that. But yeah, so that's good. I'm just going to save that, and like I said, we're going to do the height information next. So let's rotate this dude so we can actually see it. And I just made some alphas in Photoshop, and you guys can Google how to do that. Basically, all you need to do is just have a black background, okay, and then you just have a white text in this case, or white whatever it is you want to show, and then that there. So my name, or this one here, and the font I'm using is, in case you want to copy me exactly, but I will give you these alphas to use. But if you want to use your own name, obviously, that's the Cambria Math. Okay, so there's quite a few here. There's some really nice ones. Oh, Georgia looks pretty good actually. Now look at it. But yeah, so just use that. Let me undo that. So let's import that here. Right, we just copy that there, and we will. We can select all of these, right, and then make sure these are alphas. Okay, and we want this to the project. Okay, not the current session. Import that, and there we go. So we want to make sure we are working on the shoe base. Okay, so that dude there, and for some reason we have this selected here as well. I need to be careful. Oh yeah, sorry. So that there is this full layer here. We need to make sure that the full length. Okay, that's that layer there, in case you're wondering. So yeah, I confused myself there. Anyway, let's do this one. So shoe base, we want to mess with the height in this case, and let's add a folder to that. Okay, we're gonna call this the underside. So underside. All right, and for that one, we just want to get sort of this area here. So let's have a look at which what we want exactly. So there's a little bit of spacing here, but with ours it's slightly different. So we're gonna have to just kind of mess with that. So in this case, I am going to add a black mask to this. Okay, and on the black mask, I'm going to say add a paint. And we will select, actually even better, we will add a color. Where is that thing? Color selection, there we go. And we just want to pick this dude here. All right. And just to make sure, I'm going to go on over to, well, it doesn't need to be exact. So I think, yeah, we're fine on that one. So it doesn't need to be too exact. But maybe bring up the tolerance a little bit, and just to make sure, go into mask, just to make sure we're not hitting any other areas here. Okay, so I'm going to bring that up a little bit until we start hitting, yeah, let's see. Yeah, so like this one here. I think that is good enough. Let's have a look here. Yeah, maybe there. Again, we're just messing with the height, so not too important that we get every single piece. So that's the one there. We're going to press M to go back to our material view. We can't see anything because obviously we didn't add any height to that. So over here, I'm going to work on F1. And for this one, I'm going to add a full layer, right? And then on that full layer, let's just leave it white for now. And I want the height. So I'm going to check color and height just so we can actually see what we're doing. And for the height, I am going to go to, it is one of these fabric ones actually. So I think it's this one. So I think it's this one here. And I'm just basing it off of like this pattern here. You can see it kind of looks like, you know, like these stars here that I see. And that's probably the closest thing that I have to it. So I'm going to click and drag that onto the height here, right? And you can see it's very sharp, but obviously we need to change that. So let's firstly go on over to tiling and make sure it's under triplanar, just so it wraps around properly over there, especially. Okay, and if that doesn't really work out, we can, yeah, no, I think it's fine. We're just going to tile this up. So quite a bit there, as you can see. And obviously the height isn't as harsh on that piece. So now we can switch off the color here, by the way, because we don't need that. Switch that off, so it's just the height. And we can go on over to the height here. Make sure this is switched to height. And let's see here. I'll bring this down quite a bit, right? Yeah, that's probably good enough for what we need. Yeah, like 1 or 2 really. And then we can also tile this up just a little bit more because it is quite dense actually. By the way, if you hit this number here, you can, I don't know if I explained this to you guys, you can push that number like all the way up to something crazy. In this case, I don't want that at 600 because that's way too much. So I think, yeah, maybe about 35, 40, you know, something along those lines. And we can rotate the canvas with Alt, left clicking and dragging. I was just trying to figure that out there. But now it gets a little bit difficult to see, and with Substance, unfortunately, because this is at the bottom of the shoe, right, the way the lighting works is it's lighting that like that, which is really annoying. But what we could do is just go on over to height, right, and try and see if that works out, but it doesn't really help us out in that regard there, unfortunately. So we'll just leave it at material view and see if that'll help out. So Alt clicking and dragging, and what we have here are these stripe thingies here, and yeah, I'm just trying to figure out how I want to do that. So just to customize this further, we can add a black mask to this. All right, make sure we're on paint there, and then on the black mask we'll just add a full, so that fills everything here. Okay, and then we can add a paint, for example, and then we can keep it on black, so X, and then we can paint out these areas. I don't know if you can see that. Hopefully you can, but basically I'm painting out those areas for height. I don't know if, yeah, we're not going to see that. I'm just going to change this here to color so we can, yeah, there we go, you can see that. So I'm just going to leave the color on so it's better to see, like that. There we go. So that should be easier to see. But on this fill layer here, we're going to call this the under stars, right? So something like that. And then for this paint here, we'll call these the stripes. This will be these stripy things that come around here. So for that, I'm going to make this relatively harder. So maybe not all the way up, so like somewhere there, okay. So just a little bit softer, all right. And this is going to paint this out. Now that looks a bit jarring because if I just switch off the color, it'll be fine. But if I switch it back on, it's good so that we can actually see what we're doing. So back to the understars, the stripes, and I'm just going to paint this on. I might say my hand is not that steady, and that's firstly. Secondly, we want to make sure that we're painting on the, not that we really need to, but we're painting on the UV space. So the tangent grab, tangent planar, UV camera, so on and so forth. For this, we want to paint on UV, and you always want to change that because if you start painting here, sometimes you'll paint on the other layers. In this case, we don't have to worry because we have a mask hiding everything, but it's just good practice to remember that, okay? I'm going to soften the brush a little bit more, and also that's firstly changing the alignment of what you're painting, and then secondly, we have a sort of lazy mouse function here in Substance, and that distance will control how big that circle is and how small it is. And then as you draw, you'll notice that it's just a little bit easier to draw, and then if you make that bigger, then the circle just becomes a little bit softer, and you can see that, you know, even if you have an unsteady hand, it's just going to help out a little bit more. So that's one way of doing that. And I think I can just bring that down to about there. Yeah, there we go. And now I don't have to be so exact because this isn't like rocket science here. So there, I'll do another one here, maybe like that. And I'm using my mouse here, so it can be a little bit unsteady. Okay, and then I'll switch this thing off, and I will click, hold down shift, and then if you make that a little bit smaller, click, hold down shift, and then click again. That's to draw straight lines, by the way, and then to click there. And I think that's pretty good. So here again, I'm going to click, hold down shift to about there, and then there. These seem kind of random now, but anyway. And then here, hold down shift to about there, and then there, I guess. So these won't be too visible. Again, looks a bit jarring because I have the color on, but if I switch that off, you can see it here. Not that visible, by the way, but it is there if you look closely. So I'm just going to leave the color back on, go back here to my stripes. And we do have a few more here. We might have to move these. So I'm just going to be careful with that and switch that back on. Okay, and we have another one kind of coming right through that piece there. So yeah, that's good enough. Right, so next up, I'm going to add another one, switch that off. I'm going to add another one called make it paint. We're going to call these cutouts. So this is going to make that quite big, and I'm going to make that all the way hard. And I want to create that area there. So we just want to push this. It's not exactly, I guess it is in the middle. So maybe about there-ish. So that's good enough. And then I also want this area here. And this full needs to be all the way up. I don't know why that's on grayscale. So just make sure for your full layer, it's all the way up. For some reason, mine was kind of doing its own thing there. That's all the way up. So no, not there. Underside, that one. Make sure you're adjusting the proper height, because sometimes you're adjusting the wrong thing. There we go. And then back to the cutouts. Okay, X, and a little bit complicated there, but we made it. So from here to about, I'm holding down shift, to about there. And that's a little bit off, so I think hold down shift. And if you want this line to come out, you can just double click it, and that should work out. So here I'm going to hold down X to get rid of that. Just to get rid of that. And yeah, I guess that's as... you know what, I'll leave it curved. No one's going to call me out on that. That's fine. And then we have this area here. So X. This is kind of... I'm going to bring that down a little bit in terms of... how smooth I want that. So maybe from there to there. To there, to there, to there. You can just color that in. And again, you're probably thinking that's a bit much, but I think I'm just gonna leave it like that. I want to like do all this stuff here. It's a bit annoying. So I'll put that there, and then let's see. I said I'm not gonna do it, but I end up doing it anyway. There we go. Okay, so I just put this below the stripes that it can override it. So if I do this white, it's not going to get overridden by that piece. And I think that's good enough. I'm just going to leave it like that, and I'm going to do this one here. And to about there. There we go. That's it. I'm done with that. Okay, so up next are these actual text pieces here. And these are the understars. So actually, I'm gonna create a new folder. I'm gonna say text. Okay, and I think we can do. Yeah, I'm gonna do another one here. So underside text. So now we have all of that. We can go on over to the underside text, all right, folder that we just created, and we can go on over to full. And then let's just make it a crazy color for now. And I want to say, add a black mask because we just want to control where that goes. Okay, and we'll just call this text and logo. Okay, and then we could say we want either paint. Okay, and then we can just paint this on. And for this, we want color. Sorry, we want color and height, and then we can just change the height on this individually. So we want this to come out, and we can get rid of the color because actually let's just keep it on so we know what we're doing. Right, so yeah, that's looking okay. And what I'm going to do is just get rid of that paint, add another paint, and for here finally we can go on over to our alphas, right? And I forgot what I call those things, but let's see. So I want to select the circle. Okay, let's size this up. And again, control, click and drag up and down to rotate that. I just want to look at the sizing here. So maybe slightly smaller. So I'd say, yeah, about there. There we go. Now again, the color is on. We just have to switch that off and we'll just see it stamped like that. And then we can also bring it down or up depending on what we want. So I think, yeah, not too much, because that's a bit much. Switch the color back on so I can actually see what I'm doing. And we have, so these are just normal text actually over here. And this is just like some random thing, which I'll just do on its own there. But here it's just the text. So here we can go on over to, I think, font, yeah. And then we can just select one of these here. So these are in Substance, by the way, so you don't need to download this or anything. We'll just select that one there. And then what we can do is go on over to we're going to go to text, logo, paint, okay, and we just want to make sure we can put these on different layers as well. Actually, we should, because this one is coming out and the other one's going in. So I'm going to duplicate that one, get rid of that one, and we're going to do text embed. Okay, we're going to add a paint to that. We're going to make sure that this is going in. Okay, and then on the paint layer, we can actually put that, and there we go. That's going in there, at least it should be. Let's have a look. Yeah, it just looks like that because of the way we're doing that. So I'm going to undo that, go back here to paint, and to actually change that, we go to the text over here. So under paint, change that to 100%. I have no idea what that is, so that is 100% made up stuff. And now you'll notice that the text is a little bit, well, it's taking up too much. So to do that, we're going to have to change the size here, which is, I think not that one. There's a way to change the size here. Let's have a look. Here we go. So we can bring this up like this and change this size over here, which is under these parameters. That's the one. Okay. And that actually fits. So we'll put that in there, and it's slightly off by 1 degree. So maybe like that. Okay, and then we have this here as well. So this one is called shock resistant, why not? Okay, and then we will stamp that on there. There. Okay, so I'm going to switch up the color here because it's a bit distracting, and same thing on this guy here, that one. And for this one, we can do text underside, bottom piece. That's a weird naming convention actually, so we call it underside underscore musk pump. Right, there we go. Okay, and then here we will get rid of that paint and add a new one. And here I would just like a normal shape, so that one. Okay, and we will just do the height on that one. There we go. So paint, so something like that, and make sure that the height is, there we go. I keep changing that and then deleting it. So bring up the height, bring that paint, and then I think we'll do this on here, so F1, so we can actually see it. Yeah, okay. So like that, okay. And then that piece there will also come down here like that, and yeah, and I think I'll just leave it like that. So whatever you want really, okay, but I think that's good enough for now. I'm gonna leave that. There we go. And actually one thing that is bothering me, it's this area here, because that's pushed in, but we don't have that. So what I am gonna do is maybe try and pull and push that out. Let's have a look. We have a circle here, so let's do that. Create a new full layer here. Okay, just want the height, want it to go in, and I will call this areas. I don't know if that's how you spell it. Embedded areas, we will add a black mask. We will add a paint. Okay, and that will be those areas there. This needs to go negative, right? Let's just use this. So what I'm going to do is push this in like this. So I'm going to click that. I'm going to press X, and then I'm going to make that smaller, and then click that again. And that's how you do that. Okay, so that's one way of doing that. I'm not saying it's the best, but yeah, that's good enough. And then we don't have it here, but we do have it here. So what I'll do with this one is, yeah, okay, so I'll just hold down Shift. Okay. Okay. That took us a second to do, but yeah, that's kind of how you add height information. Let me save actually. That's how you add height information. So we're working with a lot of layers here and a lot of stuff. So you just want to make sure you rename it properly. So that's why I could find everything properly, right? Text logo, text embed, text underside must bump, embedded areas. Okay. That's about it. Then we'll do the stitching next. So I'm just going to do this fast forward through that. You want me to see me do that. And yeah, that's really about it. I don't need to do anything else. Yeah, and we'll be pretty much done. We just need to add color to this, and then we're kind of done. I'll add wear and tear, so on and so forth, but that's about it. Yeah, looking pretty good. I mean, looks okay for sure. So there you can kind of see that. I might need to bring down the height here. It's looking a little bit much, but I think other than that, yeah, we're okay. We're good to go. Okay, just to update you guys again, now we are pretty much done here. There's not too much that we have to do, really. We just have to add the stitching, and that's really about it. And just, yeah, so what I was gonna say is the breakup for this stuff here. So we have the height, and let's just make sure we're on the right layer here. So that's the underside, Cubase plus underside, and for this one, I want to go on over to the height. Okay, and then we have quite a few things going on here, but we're looking at the wear and tear. So we can take the roughness from here, the wear and tear on this one, we can just alt click and drag to the height over here. Okay, and for this one, I just want the height, not the roughness. So we can just mess with this here. So that will probably be something like that. And I'm just pulling that so it does something along those lines. I'm going to make sure that we're under height over here. So that's doing that. There we go. And then what you also want to do is we have the cloud, so I want to activate that one. Okay, and firstly, I want to change the randomness of that. Okay, and then also here under that dirt, just so it's not on the same position as the roughness. So now it's a little bit different. Okay, so not only is it rougher in different areas, the color is different in different areas, and the height is varying in different areas. So that there to vary it out by that much really helps out. Now again, if you think it's too much or whatever it is, you can always pull it back. And here's also something you can do. We can go on over and add a filter, and then on the, for example, right, you don't have to do this, and then on the filter we can go ahead and let me just pull this up here really quickly for this one, right, just to showcase what that's actually doing. On the filter we can go to blur, and that'll just blur out that thing just a little bit, right? So maybe it's like too sharp or something, you want to blur it. Now blur is very, very intense, so you just want to be careful with that. You might end up creating something you don't want. So I'm just going to get rid of the blur. I'm going to undo that. So I'm going to go back here and then say -1.5 maybe. Right, so as you can see, that's just another way of varying things up, right? You're just adding a bit more breakup, as you can imagine. Breakup, always good. See, I'm not going to voice that part. I'm just going to kind of skip through it, and you guys can just see me doing that, fast forwarding through that. But what I am going to do in real time and voice it is the stitches. So let's do the stitches really quickly and kind of show you how that works. And then we can also fast forward through that because you won't need to see me doing every single piece. So with this one, we know that the stitches are right on top. So we're going to close all of this stuff here. And this will be kind of stitches for everything. So for now, let's just add a new layer. We're going to go for sewing, stitching, whatever. And we will do, let's look at this picture. Okay, so in the sewing folder, what I'm going to do is, and I'm not really going to color this or anything, so what I'm going to do here is just add a layer. So not a full layer, but just a normal layer, and we're going to call this sewing. And maybe we want to do ones for like the tongue and so on and so forth. So I think we'll start it off with the back. So sewing leather back. So basically like all the back areas. Okay, so like this. Yeah, I think so. That's probably it. Okay, and then on that layer we are going to actually select stitch. That's the word I was looking for this whole time, stitch, not sewing, but stitch, and this is the one we're going to use. So now when we stitch that on, you'll notice that, hey, there we go. So we want to change a few things. So firstly, I want to add a paint, so we can do it on the paint layer, right? That's a good one. And then let's just do this one, let's just call this back underscore top. Okay, and back top. And we want to do the, oh, and if you want to erase this, just press 2 to get that erase out. That will erase that. It's usually better to just get rid of the layer, but anyway, 1 again to bring that out, and then here we go. So a few things I want to change, and I can see the height there. Let's see if it actually is. Yeah, okay, there is height information there. And yeah, for this we want to keep everything as it is. Let's see. Yeah, that height's a little too much there. Okay, it's dealing with normal and not height. So that's what that is there, by the way. So that's fine. Let's make sure we're on base color. Okay, and now we want to actually change the color of this. So to do that, we're going to right click on this and say add a generator. Okay, on the generator, we're going to say gradient. Okay, and sorry, filter, not a grade. We want a filter, and then on the filter, we want a gradient. That's the one. So gradient, and then we're going to change the color to the stitches here. And that color was this here, basically. So we'll take this one. Yeah, that's about it. And we'll take the same color here. Now I'll show you what that actually does in a second. Okay, there we go. So back to the gradient. We've got two colors here. Why do we have two? So if I change this one, you'll notice that, oh, okay, that's changing that. And if I change this one to a, oh, it didn't change this time. So basically this, sometimes it'll change the outline of that. So usually what you'll do is you'll just change both of those colors to whatever color you want. Okay, so that's that one there. So that's our setup for that. The next thing we can do is actually set up this brush. So we have the brush size, which you can always set up, the flow, etc. Now I did make a video on my YouTube channel on how to do stitches in Substance, so definitely check that out because I'm not going to go through all of this. So alignment, this is whether you're drawing on the actual object or in the UV space. In this case, we can switch between them, that's fine. The alpha is just showing how much, basically it's the alpha there. You can't really see it, but it's a square. So you don't have to worry about that. We've got the width here. Okay, so, oh sorry, that's that, not that. That one we'll leave as it is. We have the attributes here. Here we go. So base color, we don't really want base colors here, so we're just gonna leave this at like a white, and it should be overridden anyway by that, so that's fine. There's no need to deal with that. I think we'll just leave it back to that gray. Here that we've got the stitch types, so it's telling you, okay, what are we, what does it look like? We're gonna leave it at running simple, and then we've got a thicker and a thinner thread, so like that. And I think this thinner one is definitely better for what we're doing, and we want to make it a little bit smaller. And I think yeah, that's probably where we want it in terms of size. Okay, and what else do we have here? We have the puncture intensity. Okay, so that's how much that's pushing in there. And then we have the seam intensity, which is this thing here. How much of that are we getting? You can have 0 seams or 1 long seam or an actual proper seam. I think, yeah, we'll leave it at the default there. Normal intensity, so that is just how much that's pushing in height range and ambient occlusion. So this is adjusting the ambient occlusion. It's going to have either more or less of those darker areas. Height range is just going to give you more or less of that. And then really the normal map is the one you're going to want to push to get that intensity up and down. So in our case, I think it's fine where it is. I don't really want more of that. But if we do, we can just go to normal, and then we can just say, you know what, bring this down or up. Okay, depending on whatever you want. So in this case, we'll leave it, but we can always adjust it with these settings here, which is great. So now that we have all of that out of the way, let's finally start with getting this down. So all I'm going to do is just do that exact same thing that I just showed you, and I'm just going to do it all along here, but I'll create a different layer. So I'll do I'll probably just duplicate this layer, right, and then create another one for just the tongue, because it's slightly different sizes here. You can see that's a lot bigger, and then I'll do one for these as well. So that's basically it. I'm not really going to narrate through that because it's pretty self-explanatory. I am going to switch on my what do we call this actually? Lazy mouse. It is called lazy mouse. Okay, so yeah, lazy mouse as well, and then we'll use that just to guide us and draw that on. Now if you're a little bit more comfortable drawing in 2D, then you can do that here as well. Now the great thing is that some of our lines, especially this one, is straight, so we could just straight up, I need to check my size here as well. We can just straight up, and let me just, yeah, I think that's the size there. So for me it's 1.63. That's probably a good size to have there. Maybe 1.55. Okay. Yeah, that's probably good. And I just want to make sure that it's the thinner thread. Yep. Okay. So again, we could just come here and then, click. I don't know if this is going to work, but it is straight. So let's see. That might work. All right. Let's see. Straight. Ah, not bad. So yeah, that actually works. So yeah, we could do that as well. Right, that'll help out. And yeah, not bad. Obviously I need to bring it just a little bit higher or lower. Let's have a look. Oh, this needs to be over here. Okay, so this needs to be on that level there. Right, so now we know where to put it. But again, you know, depending on how you want to do it, that's up to you. So you can either do it here, and that's why we straighten these things out as well. That helps us out. And let's see, where else do we have stitches? Yeah, along there as well. So you can just see how you want to do that. But yeah, I think you get the point by now. You put this on a layer, not a full layer, okay, an actual layer. And then we get out, oh, you could just watch the video again. Okay, so yeah, that's about it. I'm just going to speed through this and narrate anything that needs to be, but that's about it. So we are pretty much done here, and the only thing I'm going to do is maybe add in just a little bit more wear and tear, so like maybe around these areas. So for example, if you have a look at these used shoes here, you can see here especially, and even those folds there, I'm probably going to put that in as well. And even here, you probably can't see it here, but let's have a look here. Yeah, I mean, because you put your foot in here, obviously it rubs against that. So that's definitely going to wear out a little bit, and here as well. So the reason as to why we add wear and tear is just to kind of tell a story, right? Give it a little bit more character and personality. And it's not just this factory new shoe, which looks great as well. But, by doing this, it just shows a little bit more character, a little bit more story, so that people can kind of try and figure out, okay, maybe this person was, they don't really care about their shoes, or they do care about their shoes, and you kind of see that they're cleaning up, but the grooves are dirty because they was cleaning here, and then stuff like that. So people just want just a little bit more information as opposed to a blank slate. So yeah, that's just kind of what that is. So I'm just going to add a little bit more wear and tear, and we're pretty much done. I'm also going to get the masking here, because right now it's just a little bit jarring to see that cutoff there with the way the polygons are. So I'm going to do that as well. But yeah, that is pretty much it. I'm not really going to do anything else, and we can finally move on to rendering this. Okay. So we are now pretty much done, but I just wanted to show you guys the smart materials, which I never actually went through. So all I did was I just dragged and dropped this under the color here, and the smart materials basically do everything that we've been doing here, but it's all in one. In other words, this fabric flannel, right? What it's doing here is it's doing all of the stuff. So you've got threading disruption, you've got edge darkening, it's doing all of this, and you can actually see what it's doing at clouds, you know, wrapping, waveform, and all that. So basically, and the reason is why I don't use this is because you do need to kind of learn how to do that, and then you can kind of take the easy way out by doing stuff like this. So we can just do this together so you can actually see what it is. So again, just to actually show you what I did, let me just delete this. Okay, so we had that, and I did, you know, mask these areas out again properly, so we can do that. So under color, I'll drag and drop that. You don't need to add a folder or anything, but I do want to add a black mask to this. And then on the black mask, of course, I'll select by UV island and select just these guys here. So it's just affecting those and the side here as well. And we can select everything else, but it won't affect that because at the end of the day, the main mask over here for the shoes leather inner is driving that. So that won't actually ever be selected. So that's a good thing. So yeah, that is it. And then we just want to open that up and just have a look at what's happening here. So we've got the discoloration, which is fine. We've got general wear for the fabric, which I might bring down here. So base color. Let's have a look here. So it, you know, and then here we've got color and height selected, for example. Okay, stuff like that. So let's look at this here. And then you can kind of, you know, go through all of this stuff, look at the balance and so on and so forth. So we're just going to bring this one down, for example. We don't really need folds, so I'm just going to delete that straight up. The clumps here as well, we can delete that. So we have the pattern horizontal, which I think I'll keep, and then the vertical one, yeah, sure, we'll keep those ones as well. So here there is probably a, yeah, there's going to be like a tiling to it, obviously. So we can tile that up or tile that down, and I think we're going to take, yeah, maybe that much there. And there's probably a few settings here, but I'm not going to go too crazy with it. So I'm going to just copy that number and then paste it here for this one. There we go. So it's that should be the same. And this is getting kind of busy here, so I just want to make sure that whatever that is, we get rid of that. I will not get rid of it, but just bring it down because that is really, really, yeah, that's the height. So we're just going to bring that down there. Let's have a look at this. Tiling. Oh, that's tiling for that. Okay. And as you can see now, because we know what everything is, we can just go ahead here and do this. But I do want to bring this down here because that is very, very, very noisy. So maybe there, and then see, this is actually subtracting. Let's see. Yeah, maybe there. Right, and we've got the base flannel. Okay, that's doing its own thing there, and let's see. Yeah, so now we can change these colors here. So let's do that. I'm going to change this to probably something browner, right? Maybe slightly red as well. Okay, and we have, oh, this one here. Let's see. Oh, with the black is going to be these guys here, the pattern. So let's have a look at that. There we go. Yeah, so we'll just make that brown. Oh, okay, it's basically inverted, so yeah, there we go. So that just depends on what you want there. So yeah, I think that's fine. One thing that is bothering me is the edge disruption. Right, that's a bit much there, so let's pull that down a little bit. Yeah, so something like that. And yeah, I think we're good to go. It looks a little too plasticky, so I just want to fix that in terms of, yeah, discoloration. Let's see. That's just the color, the height. I need some roughness on here because I don't know what's driving that. I think our roughness is being driven by this dude here, so let's have a look. Oh, okay, yeah, there we go. For this one, I'm just gonna make sure to select the paint, and we can just deselect this guy over here, this one, right, you as well. And we'll just call this flannel underscore rough. And for this, we will add a paint, and then we will select this here so we can control it manually. And then on the roughness, sorry, no, this one, here we go. Roughness, we can control that. So I just want to bring that down. Yeah, maybe about there. Okay, there we go. This is just an extra thing. Obviously, you can just not do this, right? And that'll also work out. That noise is actually kind of killing me now that I look at it. So let's see which one that is, because that is kind of annoying me a little bit. Here we go. Okay, so for the full, this was the one here, and it's very noisy, so I'm just probably gonna get rid of that one. And this one here as well. Yeah, it's just unbelievably noisy, so what I could do is undo that actually. And then I can just blur this instead. So we'll add a filter, okay, and then we will do blur. There we go. Well, that's too much, so we'll bring that down. Yeah, about that, and I can copy this, copy effects. Okay, and then I'll paste it here. Just so that's kind of blurred as well, maybe not so much, so 0.1, and then over here as well, right? This is that stuff, yeah, okay, we can definitely blur that, so paste, I can't paste those effects here, so let's add a, maybe I have to, let me just see here. Paste effects, there we go. And I don't think that worked, so let's do it again. Right click, add filter, blur, there we go. And we just want to bring that down a little bit. Okay, 0.1. Let's see if I can copy this. There we go. Okay. So that's just how you do that. And now that we did that, we're going to have to do it with this piece as well. Oh boy. So copy effects. Anyway, you get the point by now. So that is it. We don't have to do it together. You can do it on your own. But yeah, so that is kind of what we're doing. You know, I added some of these white little spots here to kind of show like dust. Okay, that really helps out. You can maybe add another layer of that. I did these here just to show the creases. Okay, you can maybe do another layer for like smaller creases just to vary that up. I'm going to blur this because that's looking a little bit intense there, a little too sharp for my liking. You know, we add the stitches, we can change the color. I add a little bit of wear and tear, that definitely helps out. We have this, you know, I changed the height for going in and out. So here under the general dust, I believe. Yeah, I think that was the one. So I called it dust height plus and dust height minus. Okay, so for stuff like that, where just the whole model, I put it in general and then a folder right at the top, and I don't really color that in. And yeah, you know, put your own name there, obviously, or mine, whatever, it doesn't matter. Or you could just keep it for the original, which is this one here, right? And you can just find alphas online, or just find the logo and then make your own alpha in Photoshop. It's not that difficult. So for this one, I will give you the file if you get the premium edition of this tutorial, right? So it's not going to be on the free one, but yeah, then all you can do is just, you know, press T, edit your own text, right? And then, because I'll give you the file, and you can just put your logo there. And then for this one here, you can just put your name here. And if your name's a little bit shorter than mine, which it probably is, let's say something like Henny, right? And then you can just take this arrow here, and then you can move it like this, just so it hits there. And you can see the little arrows here and here. You'll see it. There's a little circle there. Okay, that is the it's just showing like the end and the start. That's what I'm talking about. Okay, so I'm not going to save this, but yeah, you can just take that file and kind of do what you want with it. But yeah, we are now done, so we will head on over to the rendering. So the render setup in Maya and the rendering in Maya, just to get some pretty cool renders out. And yeah, so just to set that up. Again, that's available on the premium version, not the free version. So thanks again for checking this out, whether you bought it or just watched it on YouTube. And yeah, I think that is about it. You can add a little bit more if you want. You know, I also added a little bit of wear and tear here. And as you can see with the, with these worn out shoes here, it really does help to kind of add these. This is a little too worn out, obviously, but it, it adds to it. So you have stuff like this, right? Just use your discretion, especially here, the fading out of the rubber on the end of the shoe, right? It definitely helps out. So I'm just gonna figure this out really quickly, and then I'll get back to you guys. You can also fade this out if you want to with the text. But yeah, you get the point by now, and now you know what smart materials do as well. So you can add them here, and it's no longer some sort of conundrum. You know what each thing does. You can hide and make it visible again just to see, and then you know what it controls as well. So it's not just random stuff that you're clicking and dragging in, which is what a lot of people do with smart materials. So now you actually have an idea of what it does, and you can actually navigate that better. All right, so that's it for me. I'm gonna fast forward through this, and I'll see you guys for the rendering and the setup. Okay. And we are now finally at the end of texturing. This has been quite a long road, and this is pretty much it for the free series. So if you want to do the rendering, that'll be the premium version, which you guys can check out on the links down below. So yeah, that is pretty much it. If you did purchase the course, however, you can just have a look at the other videos, which will be included with the course as well. So thanks again for watching, whether it was free or paid. I do appreciate it, and I will see you again in my other videos, in my Discord, my blog, etc. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.